If your hard drive has been watching too many spy movies, it knows that whenever it has some valuable information that should be kept secret, that's when it's supposed to take a cyanide pill and take all that valuable information down to the cube with it. And if it's annoying that you keep losing all your important data because your hard drives keep dying, you may be interested in something known as RAID, which is a redundant array of independent, or inexpensive depending on who you ask, disks. RAID allows you to take your 4 terabytes of movies and some 3 terabyte drives to make a space bigger than one drive to store all of that, and if one or more, depending on the specific RAID you have set up, if those drives die, all your files are still there, intact. And all you have to do is just take out a new drive from the store, pop it in, it automatically copies files back onto it, and you're back up and running. Let's break down this complicated idea into smaller, easier to understand pieces. Lego-sized pieces. These 4 gray blocks will represent the different hard drives we have in our system. The red and yellow bricks mark partial files, and green bricks mark a whole file. Let's start with RAID 0. In RAID 0, you have your files chopped up into pieces and distributed across the drives. If we have our RAID configuration set to break up into 4 megabyte pieces, then this 16 megabyte file would be chopped up into 4 pieces like that. And if we have 2 files of 16 megabytes each, we end up with this. Some specifics when it comes to RAID 0. In terms of the actual storage you get all of it. If you have 2 1 terabyte drives, you have 2 terabytes that you can save files to. However, there is no built-in safety. If any one drive dies, so do all your files. Your write speed is multiplied by the number of drives you have, so if you could copy a gigabyte per second, now you can copy 2 gigabytes per second, theoretically. And the same goes for read speed. It is also multiplied by the number of drives, in theory. Anything you have stored in a RAID 0 array, you should always have backed up somewhere else if you care about that data. Next up is RAID 1. RAID 1 copies the file on both drives. If this drive were to die, you still have all these files. You just pop in a blank drive and it will automatically copy over. You do not get increased storage capacity with RAID 1. If you have 2 1 terabyte drives, you can only save 1 terabyte of data. If you have 10 1 terabyte drives, you can still only save 1 terabyte of files. However, as long as one drive continues to live, so do your files. Your write speed is the same as if you just had one drive by itself. The read speed is multiplied by the number of drives. If you have 10 drives in RAID 1, you can read 10 times as fast. What about RAID 10? RAID 10 is actually a combination of RAID 0 and RAID 1. For instance, we have our RAID 0, where it splits the files up, and then we have RAID 1, where these drives mimic these drives. Specifically, these 2 are mirrors, and these 2 are mirrors, like that. Advantages to this include this drive can die, and this drive can die, or this one and this one could die, or these 2 could die, and you still have all your data. Any one drive could die, and sometimes 2 can die. One disadvantage to this system is if all of these were 1 terabyte drives, you have 2 terabytes of storage total across all 4 drives. So you lose half the storage capacity from if you were using no configuration of RAID at all. With RAID 10, you can store half the capacity of all your drives.
If you have 4 1TB drives, you can store 2 terabytes. If you have 6 drives, you can store 3 terabytes. You can lose 1 drive, and as long as you lose drives in the same pair, you should be fine as well. Your write speed is multiplied by the number of drive pairs, and your read speed is multiplied by the number of drives total. Now, I say drive pairs for write speed, but if you did something crazy, like you had 3 drives in RAID 0 and 2 RAID 1 pairs of that, then of course your write speed would be tripled.
Next up is RAID 5, and for this example we will be using 3 hard drives. You have part 1 and part 2, and you have a full file of that data here. Now this part is thicker because it is a combination of this and this put together. And then again another file with this level of RAID, you can lose any one drive in this array and still have all of your data, because you have your 2 halves and your entire copy, and it's distributed equally among all the drives.
RAID 5, which is the one I'm using, your storage capacity is only -1 drive. So if you have 3 1TB drives, you get to store 2 terabytes. If you have 10 1TB drives, you can save 9 terabytes. If any one drive dies, you'll be just fine. Your write speed is the same as just one drive, and your reading speed is multiplied by the number of drives -1. RAID 6 is basically the same as RAID 5, except that instead of just having one drive of backup, you have 2. So your storage would be -2 drives. Your safety would be if you lose 2 drives, you're still okay. Write speed is the same, and read speed is multiplied by the number of drives -2. The difference between RAID 5 and RAID 6 is just how extra safe you want it versus how much storage capacity you need.
Up until recently, it used to be that you had to use what's known as a hardware RAID controller, something that plugs into an expansion slot on your motherboard and has some hard drive cables on it, if you wanted to do RAID 5, RAID 6, essentially anything other than RAID 1 or RAID 0. Some motherboards and Microsoft Windows will allow you to do what's called software RAID, where Windows itself is assigning which files and parts of files go where. However, Windows 8 and 10, both like Home, Professional, all those regular people versions of Windows, can now do RAID 5. If you liked this video and found it super useful, why not help support us by making this link in the description to the video your bookmark for Amazon.com. The purchases you make when you visit Amazon from that link will give us a small cut of whatever you purchase, because Amazon sees it as us referring you to something, and that helps us to afford all the hard drives to make a video for this, and of course this is for storing all the videos I'm making for both my channels. So consider supporting us. If you don't want to help us in that way, you can always support us by giving us a like, leaving a comment down below about what you thought was great about this video. Any constructive feedback would be welcome. And as always, make sure to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.